I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching In Depth
On Now You Know.
All right, so Q2 earnings call. This is not the most exciting thing, so I know most of you didn't watch it or listen to it, but it's got a lot of good stuff in it. We're going to roll right through it, so you don't have to listen to the whole 1 hour thing.
Yeah, I didn't listen to the whole thing. Zach did the whole thing. So
took notes.
I'm going to be the guy who doesn't know anything.
All right, so Friday night, Elon said, which was last Friday night, we were in Fremont at the Model 3 delivery event. He said it was one of the most important days in Tesla's history in 14 years of Tesla.
Yeah.
He wanted to make an affordable car all along, and he is confident that he can reach 10,000 vehicles a week towards the end of 2018. He thinks that 5,000 cars a week by the end of 2017 is going to work. He said, but don't get too caught up in week-to-week production numbers. It's exponential. We should have zero concern about Tesla reaching that 10,000 a week by the end of 2018. So that's really good news.
Yeah.
He said they learned a lot from their mistakes in the past about the cost of production. The Model X was far too advanced. We've heard that before. And that it was the first generation of a product. Now I wanted to point out that they've got Model 3 simplified, and one could not ask for better reviews. He said that the test drives by journalists, so this was before we got there, they let journalists drive the car. They said 80% of the journalists said they would buy the cars themselves, and 20% said they probably would do that. He said he's never heard of anything like that.
Right, 80%, and the other 20% probably would. So, I mean,
crazy.
It's great.
He said he thought that one of their big concerns would be that Model S and X, the demand would suffer, but the opposite has happened. The demand for Model S and X has actually increased.
That's great.
Orders have accelerated in July, and they've even gotten better since the delivery event. So people saw the Model 3 and said, I can't wait. Elon said July was one of their best months ever. Elon said that he drives the latest AP all the time, and he said the AP software is getting better and better, and there's something special about this latest version coming out, and that he's really excited about the talent that is joining them at Tesla for working on the autopilot. So that is really cool.
World class.
Yeah, world class talent. Model 3 net orders have been 1,800 orders a day.
Wow, that's...
This is with a car they can't see, they can't test drive, and they're not even promoting the car, and they don't even want to talk about it at the store. If you go to the store and talk about Model 3, they will not talk about it with you. And yet, that's how well they're selling. Elon wanted to point out, as he always does, that he screwed up when he named them. He really wanted to call it the Model E, right? But then Ford wouldn't allow it. So it's the Model 3, so everyone thought, oh, Model 3 must be third generation. It's not. It's a lower value car than the Model S and X, but he wanted to point out that all the cars now, the S, the X, and the 3, are Model 4 generation. Because, because they've got the latest technology. So, Sparky, you're not Model 4. Sorry.
That's too bad.
So the solar roof, very exciting. It has begun the installation process, and they've actually installed it on Elon's roof and on JB's house. And so here are pictures of that. Pretty exciting. These are not photoshopped, he said.
Right, so that means that there are real solar roofs on real people's houses.
Right.
So very cool people's houses, but still real people nonetheless.
He said it's been a very challenging technical task. They're streamlining the installations and how they do it. It's going to start very slowly, he said, but it's going to grow exponentially, just like with producing the Model 3. So it's going to get faster and faster. So Elon mentioned that conventional solar is doing really well and generating income. They're also making great progress on the Australian 129 megawatt hour power pack system. Elon's going to give an update at the International Astronautical Conference in Adelaide, which will be in September. He said that Tesla will have a substantial proportion of the Australian battery pack done, and that's only in 8 weeks. He said that's an aspirational goal, no promises. He also pointed out there are 33,000 people working for Tesla right now, and he's said they're working on very difficult things. So he got a question. This was during the question and answer period about capex for the quarters.
Okay, all right, so wait a minute. What is capex?
Capital expenditures. How much money are you going to spend to buy new machinery and things and buildings?
Because that's what capital is.
Right,
gotcha.
Right. So they're gonna they're questioning what they're going to be spending in quarters 3 and 4.
Okay.
He said it's hard for us to know. Mistakes have been made in the past because they were stupid, not because they were trying to mislead anyone. He said, if I knew, I would tell you. Fundamentally impossible to predict the S-curve of the production. We're in manufacturing hell right now. He said, we know this, we signed up for it. We're not blaming hell, we bought the ticket. But he said right now they're paying off the Model 3 equipment. So basically when they hit milestones for that equipment, they pay it off. They're also paying for a Gigafactory. They're paying for superchargers. They're paying a lot of money. Basically, they're going to be paying about $2 billion in the next half year of 2017, so the later half of 2017, just for capex.
Okay. Wow.
They've already spent $959 million in this quarter. So they're spending money a lot, but that's because they have to build up the factory.
Yep.
He said they're also trying to decide where to put Gigafactories 3, 4, and 5, and they're also thinking about the Gigafactories that are going in China and Europe.
Wow.
They really want to get cars as affordable as possible. He said it's maybe the best he's ever felt about Tesla, to be frank. He said, last week stressed the hell out of me.
So he said
seemed to have gone past a corner.
there was a lot of high expectations on him, and I think they really pulled it off.
Yeah.
So I'm super glad that he's feeling better.
Yeah, I really am
because
too. He was really, I could tell from the last few things we'd seen him speaking at that he was stressed.
Yeah.
But he seemed a lot happier in this conference call. He was joking a lot. So Elon made a correction from the last time we heard from him. He said that the Model Y will be, in fact, using a lot of Model 3 architecture, whereas last time he said it would be a completely newly engineered car.
Yeah.
He said that basically his executive team pulled him back from the edge, talked some sense into him, and said, look, dude, we got to build this car fast. That means we can't start from scratch.
So, I mean, that's interesting because he said building the Model X on top of the Model S hardware was so much more difficult than he thought than building a brand new car from scratch. But I guess
think because it's going to be a pretty simple car. The Model Y. It's not going to try and be like the Model X. He got questions about the margin on the Model 3. He said that they're going to be shooting for a 25% margin on the Model 3 once they get up to production of about 5,000 units a week, and after they've continually sustained that for 3 or 4 months. And so they have 100% probability in reaching that next year. He said, we are significantly less dumb this time. Model 3 is designed for manufacturing, and let's give our suppliers credit here. He pointed out that the Model 3 has A suppliers with A teams working at those A suppliers.
Wait, so the A team is working as their supplier?
You would think that's what he meant, but what he meant was when you're working with a supplier, a lot of times as you're a startup, you only get to work with kind of B or C level suppliers, so not high quality products. And then even when you're working with those suppliers, you don't get their best team working for you. Now they've got the A suppliers and they're working with the A team, which means that if there's a problem in a supplier, they still are the #1 priority to get those parts, which is huge for us. That means that if, some supplier out there is supplying some widget and they have a problem at the factory, Tesla's still going to get that widget first.
And they also have Mr. T on their team.
Which is important.
Very important.
Someone asked him about the solid-state battery. They're like, we've heard all these things about solid-state batteries. What do you think? Is there going to be a breakthrough? And Elon said, look, there's battery breakthroughs du jour. When someone has a great claim, send us a sample or an independent lab. Otherwise, STFU. He said Tesla is the largest buyer of lithium-ion batteries on Earth. And it takes several years to get battery tech to run full scale all the way from the lab all the way full scale to manufacturing. So he's like, we'd love a battery breakthrough. And there are some breakthroughs that are achievable and that are confidential and he can't really talk about right now. So it sounds like on the horizon, there will be something, but not for the next few years, it sounds like to me.
I mean, you have to ramp stuff up.
Exactly. He got asked questions about needing another equity raise. And basically they said no. As we generate more cash from the Model 3 and better sales of S and X, we're fine on cash. We're not going to need to do that. That's great for you stockholders out there because it means they're not going to be diluting the stock. He said they actually have much better negotiation terms with their suppliers, payment terms. So they're close to about 60 days now. When they first started, suppliers weren't sure if Tesla would be around. So like, pay us before we ship you the products.
Interesting.
They've got a $1.9 billion line of credit, so they've got plenty of credit. They've got $700 million in funding from Solar City. And he said that most car dealers, it takes them 70 to 90 days to get a car from building it to sold to the customer. At Tesla, it takes them about 30 days.
Wow.
So they're much more efficient. Adam Jonas asked the question about safety data. He said, we haven't heard a lot of new safety data. And Elon basically admitted, yeah, it's hard to get data from these cars into some form that we can actually tell you some safety data numbers. So he's like, we look at data all the time, but we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out what to do with all this data we've got. So an interesting point about SpaceX team helping the Tesla team. He said that I guess a few weeks ago, they had a problem with one of their aluminum castings and SpaceX came up with a way to use ultrasound sensors to fix the issue. And this was something that was taking them 8 hours per car.
Wow.
So by having their SpaceX team, it helps them on Tesla side, and the Tesla side helps them figure out how to do things better on the SpaceX side.
Wow. So, I mean, having rocket scientists basically on your team.
Yeah, on call.
Yeah, pretty helpful for a car company. That's That's new.
Yeah.
Nobody knew that before.
Nope. We got a question about superchargers. Elon had told us that they'll be tripling the number of superchargers between now and the end of 2018. He said it's really hard in some locations to even find a place to put one. Like he said, Malibu, hard to find place. He said the first mega supercharger with amenities will be unveiling soon. That'll be really cool. And JB Strobel pointed out that we already have plenty of capacity at most of our superchargers because many of them are between cities where you don't get a whole lot of traffic.
Right. If you have seen our cross-country road trip, you've seen us basically traveling in very remote places in the United States where there just are not a lot of Teslas around.
Right.
And so it's really just people passing through. And you could have hundreds and hundreds of Teslas all making the same route, but usually you're not making it at the exact same time. And so if you're not there within the same 30 minutes as another Tesla driver, you're not going to see each other.
Right.
And so basically the capacity of them is very high because there's not a lot of people living around there.
Right. It's almost like they're overbuilt to begin with.
Right.
One question got asked about the Porsche question. Porsche has said that they're going to come out with a 15 minutes charging time. And JB answered this saying that we could do that. We could speed up the charging time, but it would degrade the battery so much. We found the sweet spot of how fast to charge the battery where we get the maximum battery life.
So that's interesting that basically Porsche is just making claims that Tesla could do, but it's just that they don't want to ruin your battery.
Exactly. Elon pointed out that with the long-range Model 3, the number of times that you will have range anxiety is 0.
Yeah. I mean, in our Model X, we have 257 miles of maximum range. And I mean, we've hardly ever felt like we were going to run out of charge.
Right.
Having 310 miles is just going to be like walk in the park.
They got questions about what are they hoping to learn from the early Model 3s. And Elon pointed out there's no discount for the car for their employees. They want to see if there's any inconsistencies with quality control from suppliers and in the production process. And they want to see if there's any software, hardware interaction issues. But the basic idea here is by selling it to employees and investors first, they're ironing out any little problems before the average person buys it.
Right. Wow. I mean,
Who does that?
No other car company does this. I mean, they might make a small batch of cars, but they're not going to make a couple thousand cars and then, be able to iron out kinks so seamlessly and quickly because they're going to be selling them to just anybody.
Right.
And that person isn't going to necessarily have, Elon Musk's email and be able to say, hey, my rear view mirror doesn't act properly. And be able to intelligently ask that question.
Right. Speaking of batching cars, Elon mentioned that they batch cars at the factory. That means that they build them in groups like, okay, we're going to build them this week for Europe and Asia. Now we're going to build them this week for the West Coast and so forth. And so they get delivered at different times. And so some analysts are like, oh, for the past 3 weeks, no cars have been sold in Norway. That must mean they're having trouble. No, he said, we batch them, and so that's why we don't tell you all of our sales data, because it's meaningless extrapolation. Wait until you see the big picture. He got asked, well, your first Model 3s that roll off the line, they're going to have a low margin because it cost you so much to make the factory. And Elon said, yeah, it's like if you built a soap factory. The first bar of soap is going to cost $1 million. It takes until you ramp up production until you can get the price down. He said, so that's what it is with us. Next quarter, yes, the margins will be low, but as soon as we get ramped up, margins will be good. He pointed out that 80% of cars that we service don't require a lift, which means they can fix them at the customer's location with their mobile service truck.
Wow.
That is pretty different than most other car companies if you think about it.
That's
most
so
you have
true.
to lift up and look at the bottom, the exhaust.
Right. The only thing under a Tesla is the battery pack.
Right, and maybe
the bottom of the battery pack.
And maybe some brake work.
Right.
Right.
Everything else you can service, that's awesome.
I know. Saves them a lot of space. So they talked about capex, like we talked about. They've been spending about $100 million per week, so that is a lot. But they're basically done with the tooling for Model 3, and they're just getting it tweaked at the moment. They talked about the conversion rate for customers at their stores. They said that they're seeing continued improvement in the conversion rate of selling now solar at their stores, because that was something they never sold there before.
Yeah.
So you go in to talk about a car, and you leave maybe with a solar system on your roof.
Wow.
Something I didn't realize, that the 18650 cells, which are the ones made in Japan by Panasonic, are still being used in the Model S and X. Model 3 is getting the 2170 cells, which are the newer cells from the Gigafactory.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Elon talked about the tenure of their employees. He said it's above average for most companies. He said that by a year or two, they retain their employees, especially at the executive level. He did talk about the autonomous drive from LA to New York. I was glad he did that. He said he's still shooting for the end of the year, but if you can't stick to that, if it happens to happen, a month or two later, it's still going to happen. It's just, he can't get the timing exactly predicted right.
Well, that's unbelievable. I don't know. I don't know about this Elon Musk character anymore.
Yeah.
Wow, if he can't stick to these deadlines.
If you can't drive a car across the country autonomously on time.
If you can't be, yeah. I mean, come on. Ridiculous.
Deliveries of the Model S and X in quarter 2 were 22,026, which is 53% bigger than in Q2 of 2016.
Wow.
And this is in a flat luxury vehicle market. We're talking all the major manufacturers are not seeing any growth right now, Porsche and Mercedes.
Wow, except Tesla is.
Well, Tesla is, yes.
So,
he's projecting that Model S and Model X deliveries will increase in the second half of 2017 compared to the first half. So that's awesome. The margins that we're talking about in quarter 2 were 27.9%. That is up from 27.4% last quarter and up from 23.1% year over year. Now, I know that's a lot of numbers, but I just want to point out what this is showing is a steady increase in gross margin, which means they're getting more efficient at making the cars. That is why you'll see in our Tesla Time news this week, they can do something with that.
interesting.
Interesting. You'll have to tune in and see why. In quarter 2, the GAAP loss from operations improved sequentially. So for the past two quarters in a row. So that means that basically they're losing money because they're spending so much money.
What's GAAP loss?
GAAP loss is the generally accepted accounting principles. And so they've lost money, but it's getting better.
Okay.
So they're losing less money every quarter. And it's okay for a company like this to be losing money right now when you're ramping up production of something big.
Right.
They're not a company that's been in business for decades.
Decades and decades. And they need to build basically a brand new factory.
Right. They have more than $3 billion of cash on hand at the end of quarter 2. Now, they have said that they expect about 1,500 Model 3s to be delivered in quarter 3. That is not a lot of cars, but that is what they've already expected. So this is nothing new. It's the beginning of this S-curve, and then it's going to get way better in quarter 4. International Model 3 deliveries will begin in late 2018. So we're sorry to all of our international viewers. It's going to be a little while before you're going to get your cars. And that is because they need regulatory approvals, and then it's going to take even longer, we're sorry to tell you, for right-hand drive units to hit markets. That's going to happen in 2019. So we're sorry, Australia, Hong Kong,
and
UK.
England, yeah. But I mean, this is a brand new car. I mean,
it's a brand new car.
It's going to take a while.
Right. You could move here if you want to.
Hey.
He reminded us that in June, the Model X got NHTSA's 5-star safety rating, which is the second best test results ever. Sorry, Model X, it's just the second best.
What was the first one again?
Model S.
Hey.
In quarter 2, Tesla opened 29 new stores and service locations, bringing the total to 300 globally. They added a lot more Model X's to their stores and to loaner cars. And because of that, Model X had 20% higher net orders in quarter 2 than in quarter 2 of last year. And they think that's because more Model X's were out on the roads and people were seeing them and going to their service centers and borrowing them and going, whoa, I like this car.
Yeah, I do.
Quarter 2 started the taking of orders for the solar roof and began their first installations. They received the ASTM International's Best Class F wind rating.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty...
I haven't been keeping up on the ASTM International's Best Class F wind ratings.
Well, you should be going to those conferences more often.
I suppose I should be, but so does that mean that it's good for hurricanes and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that wind rating is up to, but it's the best that they can give.
Oh, all right,
So
sweet.
That's pretty good. Residential solar sales fell because Tesla stopped doing door-to-door sales, but it's expected to resume growth in quarter 4 compared to quarter 3. Now, I want to parse that for you. This means they've had quite a drop in solar sales because it was working pretty well for them to go door-to-door. They don't like that model, and so that means they're kind of having to start from scratch and have people come into their stores and learn about solar that way. So it's going to take them a while to get back to that sales growth that they had before.
Right.
But I think they're going to get there.
Well, and here's something that you can do, viewer, is talk to your friends, see who's interested in solar, and then send them over to a Tesla showroom. Maybe they'll get solar, maybe they'll get a Model S or an X.
Maybe they'll get a power pack.
Yeah, and if they're getting a Model S or X, we have a referral code.
That's true.
If you don't have one to give out.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end of the show.
Yes.
And they're no longer pushing solar leases. 37% of deployments in quarter 2 were solar purchases compared to just 6% a year ago. So they're definitely getting a lot more people to buy the systems, which is what Solar City and Tesla want. And this trend is expected to continue. In quarter 2, Tesla sold a portfolio of deployed solar leases for $313 million. That means that basically they'd already gotten these systems on people's roofs like mine, then they sold them to other companies to keep collecting the money from.
Right. It's a great investment because the sun comes up every day.
It should. That's what I'm told. And then at the end of the letter, he said something which I'm looking forward to too. He said, we're looking forward to unveiling the semi-truck.
Yes.
That should happen in September. So this, hope you enjoyed this little Q2 review. I love it anytime that Elon has a chance to speak to us directly, because that, I mean, let's face it, he's the CEO of the company. Most CEOs of companies are not the dreamers, the innovators. They're just people who are there to kind of make sure that the widgets are all being made and the accounting's being done.
Very true.
But Elon is the guy that everyone looks to.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining us this week on Now You Know's In Depth. Please give us some comments below about things you'd like us to do in-depths about.
Yeah. Just so you guys know, first of all, like this video, subscribe to this channel.
Please.
We do this every single week.
Yep.
In depth, and tomorrow, Tesla Time News is coming out, and that will continue to happen.
It should.
Every week.
If the sun comes out.
If the sun comes up, we're doing this show. Actually, there's one day where there's going to be an eclipse.
Oh, crap.
So we might be in trouble.
We don't do it that day.
By the way, if you were thinking of buying a new Tesla Model S or X...
Oh, yeah, this is exciting.
...or a used Tesla Model S or X, you can use our referral code.
And something amazing happens when you do that.
You get $1,000 off your purchase.
But that's not what I'm talking about.
You also get free unlimited supercharging for life.
It's still not what I was talking about.
What else are you talking about?
You're going to get, so that gets us a chance to get a next generation Roadster, right? If we get 50 referrals, we get a free Roadster. And if you live in the continental US, what we're going to do, and you use our referral code, we're going to show up at your house and we're going to say, hey, hop in, we're going for a test ride.
Yeah, and then I'm going to stand awkwardly
oh, that's right, because
on
there's
your
only
lawn.
2 seats.
I'm going to stand awkwardly on your lawn.
Or maybe I'll stand awkwardly.
Talk to your family or your roommates or whatever.
Or just have a burrito.
Just sort of stand there waiting while you guys go zip off into the sunset. And I'll see you guys later when you come back.
So make sure you go do that, because that would be awesome.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. Now you know.